Before we get into some of these teams, though, Raheem, well, there's one I want to get into right out of the gate. And you need to help me out. Maybe, DeBundo, you can do the same. Mike Malone has been one of the best coaches in the NBA for the better part of the last 5 to 6 years. This is a guy who won an NBA championship just 2 years ago. Not that long ago. We're talking about Denver and Malone winning a title. He's widely regarded as one of the most successful coaches the league has to offer. Raheem, the Nuggets are pulling a page out of the hockey playbook. They're firing their coach with a week to go in the regular season. What is that?
Yeah, with 3 games to go in the regular season, they decided to fire Mike Malone, which is, absolutely insane. They also fired their general manager in Calvin Booth. And, there's a lot of people who are looking at the Denver Nuggets roster and you say, you know what, Calvin Booth needed to go. But to fire Mike Malone, it's extremely shocking. And, I think one of the things that you're seeing when you look at the rumor mill and everything like that is that this had been brewing. It just seems like, winning has covered up a lot of issues. And it felt like, Mike Malone, he came out the other day and said that he couldn't get to the players anymore. He's telling them they need to do a better job at defending and, they're not listening. And, the interesting thing is that I don't think this happens if Jamal Murray is healthy. So I think, it's very rough. I totally don't understand it to make this move now with 3 games left in the regular season. I don't know how this puts them in a better spot going into the postseason. But, the NBA is crazy. When you look at there's multiple teams who won the championship from 2020 to 2023. Steve Kerr is the only one who's had his job. Everybody else has been fired. You're talking about Mike Budenholzer. He won a championship. He got fired. Mike Malone, he won a championship. He got fired. Frank Vogel, he won a championship with the Lakers. He's gotten fired. Steve Kerr is the only one left. So nobody is safe at this point in time. And at this point in time, Oklahoma City, they had a monster season, but they're a 3-game losing streak away from him getting fired at this point in time. It's just like they're just throwing drama. This is wrestling at this point.
I will say, it as somebody who watches a lot of European soccer, I'm enjoying how much this is supposedly crazy because it's not usual in the NBA, but in soccer, this stuff happens all the time. You quote unquote lose the locker room after a 5-6 game stretch, you're out. Borussia Dortmund are in the Champions League quarterfinals. They've by all stretches had an up and down season, but they just fired their coach mid-season and nobody bats an eye. So I think it's interesting kind of looking at it from different perspectives. Of course,
it happens in EuroLeague basketball as well. And you look at some of those international basketball teams. If Real Madrid, they had a 3 or 4 game losing streak, you out the window. And so it's like, it's just a different culture.
But they do this to Bundo in hockey a lot. You'll see this in hockey, mid-season firings, end-of-year firings. You look at the other 3 big sports, though. This doesn't happen. I am not one to look at this move now and say, yeah, this is going to spark a team. I always go back to this example. Jack McKean took over for the Florida Marlins back in 2003, long time ago. They made a managerial change. He took over, traded Jack, making all sorts of crazy moves, sparked the team, made the playoffs, won the World Series. It's very rare that in the NFL or in the NBA, you're going to go and make that sort of mid-season, end-of-year coaching change, and it's going to spark your team. The history doesn't necessarily side with it. You know what I mean?
Right, but now we're rewriting history, right? Are we changing course on this? Is this going to become more common? I think there's going to be bigger discussions about how much does the coaches matter. I think it was always the downstream effect of it being essentially the player empowerment era was always going to come to this point where coaches just recycle. I was thinking, Raheem, what you mentioned, even a lot of the coaches who lost in the finals have also been moved on from. Nick Nurse, 2019 also, they won, he's out. So you don't really get the same leeway you used to anymore. And I think that's just part of, if the players are going to move all the time, we might as well just also have the coaches do the same thing. And
I also think there's not, when you look at the new salary cap, the new CBA, the second apron, I think there's a lot more urgency now because, a lot of these teams don't have the flexibility to be able to move off players the way they used to. Teams are afraid of going into the tax and paying that repeater tax. So now it's like, all right, look, I got to make a spark somewhere. I got to make a change. It may have to come from the head coaching position since, you're not going to see as much movement due to the second apron.
Okay. Denver trying to stay out of that play-in now as they get ready for the final games of the regular season, Raheem. They're 47-32 on the year. They got a couple of games left. Where do we stand on them in evaluating them from the rest of the teams within the Western Conference. Clearly, they are not on that top level. I don't think anybody can make that argument now between the roster, the lack of depth, firing their coach. I like them less now than I did a week ago or 2 weeks ago, and I was kind of down on them to begin with. But are we looking at the Denver Nuggets as a team that's destined to be bounced in the first round, even with one of the, if not the best player in the world on their team?
I mean, obviously, it's all going to come down to matchups in the Western Conference. I think that's the biggest thing that we all know because, any of these teams can beat either one of these teams. I mean, you're looking at 2 through 8 is separated by 2 games. So until we see the matchups, I don't want to, say they're destined to be bounced out of the first round. But at the end of the day, when you look at this Denver Nuggets roster, it doesn't seem like Jamal Murray is healthy. It doesn't seem like he's on the path to be playing in the postseason. And if they don't have Jamal Murray, they're missing a key point, a key player who, is part of their offense in terms of their pick and roll with Jokic and Murray. And, a big part of them winning is their execution in the clutch. Without Jamal Murray, I think he hurts that. And you also have to remember the bench is bad. It's downright abysmal. And you're playing Russell Westbrook a ton of minutes, and he's not reliable. So I'm not high on this Nuggets team at all. And at this point in time, you have to ask, at what point in time do one of these international players say, you know what, enough is enough? And, Jokic has earned the right to say, I don't want to be here anymore. Like, trade me, because it's clear that this front office has not put a championship roster around.
Okay, Raheem, mention matchup. What would be the matchup still from a Denver standpoint where they could go and have success in the first round, if there's one?
I mean, I think everybody's looking at Houston. Obviously the Nuggets are in the 4th seed right now, but if anybody takes on Houston, you're talking about a team that is 23rd in half-court offensive rating. And if you're taking on Houston, I think any one of these teams could beat Houston in the first round.
Well, for them, though, Raheem, it's interesting. Their best chance of matching up with Houston is going to be falling into the play-in, right? Because the way it kind of shakes out in the West, Oklahoma City is the 1 seed. That's locked up. Houston is the 2 seed. That's locked up. So, yeah, I would say for Denver, I'd rather play Houston than the Lakers. I'd rather play Houston than Golden State, who we're going to get to in a matter of moments. You'd probably rather play Houston than the Clippers, quite frankly. But that means you're going to go and lose a game or two here along the way. And if you go and lose that playing game, the Bundo, then all of a sudden Oklahoma City's staring you in the face 1-8, and it's good night to lights.
Right. I think that's my question. Like, all right, let's play either or. Would you take the Warriors or the Nuggets if they played heads up?
You tell me Golden State, Denver in a first-round series, I'm taking Golden State. Golden State.
Lakers or Denver, first round, who you taking?
Lakers.
I'm taking at this point in time. Without Jamal Murray, I think you probably can almost take anybody.
Clippers or Nuggets, you would take Clippers.
Yeah, but I wouldn't feel great. I wouldn't. But you know what though, the Bundo, I wouldn't feel great about that. Despite, in theory, the coaching advantage they should have with Ty Lue and Jeff Van Gundy being on that staff. That's serious heavy hitters from a coaching standpoint. I think the Clippers have one of the best coach teams, Raheem, in the league. The concerns I have about Leonard getting hurt at any moment and Harden absolutely turning into a zero come playoff time, that'd be a scary series to me if I'm the Clippers playing the Nuggets. You know that, Raheem? That would scare me a little bit.
The Clippers have the better defense, though.
They do. Listen, the Clippers be favored in the series. They should win.
The Clippers probably would be favored in that series. Depending on who has home court, of course.
So is there any way, Raheem, Denver is favored in a first-round series? I don't think they are, right? Unless it's Houston.
What's Denver's current odds to make the semifinals? Do they have a no price?
All right, so these numbers are down right now. Okay, but they will put them back up. The point being is this. You can really have a lot of fun dissecting which ones you like and which ones you don't like, and then you could kind of act accordingly. But I think it's fair to say, Raheem, as of right now, you will not have Denver advancing in the first round, correct?
Yeah, as of right now, I'll say that. But I don't want to make a definitive statement.
Of course,
I really want to see.
You reserve the right to change your mind. It's totally
I need to
fair.
see the matchups because the Western Conference is all matchups right now.
Well, you mentioned those matchups. We're going to try to figure out who's peaking at the right time, who's trending in the wrong direction like Denver, as we look at the West and the madness that we have over the final few days of the regular season. If there's anything that we can maybe pick apart from these East matchups, we'll dive into that too. It is the final home stretch of the NBA regular season. Next week, the fun kind of starts. It does in the West. It doesn't in the Eastern Conference. We'll dive into that. I mean, if you're getting all jazzed up for Atlanta and Orlando, you got some issues. Let's just put it that way. But a lot more NBA discussion coming your way right after this.